After we played with it a few times, got through. So here we are, and we've got our Tuesdays with Tecla, and I've got a really great question that I want to answer that someone had written in on. And by the way, please, if you're watching this or if you watch a recording of this, if you have a question that you would like to have answered, we're going to take every Tuesday night and answer a question. Please just write your question in the comments, and we're collecting them, and then we pull them out of a hat, and then we go ahead and we answer them. So the question that I have to answer tonight is, how do I get my dog to stop jumping on me and my guests? And it's a really great question. And I think it's really going to be pertinent to a lot of people, especially with the holidays coming up if you have guests over. So we're going to talk through this. As with most everything that I train, I have many different ways to approach any one issue. And how I choose to approach it really depends on the situation. Is it a puppy? Is it a dog? Is it small? Is it large? Is it exuberant and happy and boisterous? Is it fearful? Is it potentially a behavioral case that could be a danger to a guest coming through the door? And we'll talk about that in a moment. Is it food motivated? Is it not, etc.? So there are a lot of things that I look at, and there's definitely a hierarchy that I'll work through. So what I want to do is preface this. If you have a dog that's a behavioral case and would present a possible danger to a guest walking through the door, then these answers are not for you, and you definitely need to seek help. And you can do that. There are, plenty of trainers and behaviorists, I'm sure, in your area. I can also help as well. So if you need that help, please don't hesitate to reach out, info@universityofdog.com. Now, that said, how I would approach this, let's look at a puppy first. So a lot of puppies are just, super exuberant. Maybe there's a fear period going on, or then they're a little fearful. One of those things going on. So what I'll generally do for puppies, again, least invasive is generally the easiest path, right? So what I'll do with a puppy is, and this is before they've learned place bed or anything else. This is just to help you with like a quick and dirty answer. Like, let's just get something done. Is I'll cut up very high value reward, very tiny, like confetti size pieces, right? And what I'll do is I'll just throw a confetti party for the puppy. So as I go to the door to answer the door, I'll toss that confetti party, and we're talking like a handful, and it can be as small as like bacon bits. Because what I want the puppy to do is I want the puppy to be so interested in what's going on the floor that they don't even care that I open the door. Okay, so that gets them going there and focused on that instead of the possibility of jumping on a guest. Now, if your puppy's not food motivated, then you need to look at why. Like, generally puppies should like food. So are you free feeding, etc.? There's a whole hierarchy of things to go through there. And if you have that going on, then, I definitely, again, it would be something where I would recommend you potentially look up a trainer or reach out to us for more help. Or make sure you do this or train this when you haven't just fed them a full meal, right? So time meals. So if you have guests coming, maybe hold their meal until your guests have arrived, use this high value treat a little bit. And then after everybody's settled and calm, you can go ahead and feed your puppy their meal. Okay, so that might be a way to help a puppy that's not so food motivated. And then what the other piece of this, though, is while your puppy's eating the food, and a huge important thing is we need to have the guests not care about the puppy. This never goes well if you wait until your guests are already through the door to explain this. So if you're having guests over, I would have a conversation with them on the phone or shoot them an email. What it means to be neutral and why you're asking them to be neutral. Basically, what it means to be neutral is completely ignore your puppy. And then when you, as the mom, dad, handler, owner, are ready, after everyone's been in the house like 5-10 minutes, after maybe your guest is even seated in a chair, they can acknowledge your puppy at that point. But when they're first coming through the door, there should be no acknowledgement. Neutral means that they talk with you, they ignore your puppy, they let you handle the situation, and they just, glide through to wherever you want to guide them to. And, if you do eventually want them before they're seated to acknowledge your puppy, then that is fine. But again, it would be how we want to make sure we explain this, especially for a puppy, is most people make the mistake of not getting down to the puppy's level to greet them. So they stay really high and the puppies learn to put their paws up on the human. And then what happens is before long, the puppies are like, oh, this is how I get attention from a human, and then they start this whole jumping thing. So again, if I'm going to have a guest that's not seated acknowledge my puppy, I'm going to ask them to almost kneel sideways and be down at the puppy's level to greet the puppy. And again, if you've got an elderly person, someone that can't do that, then I would wait until they're seated in a chair and they can bend and pet the puppy like down at their, their kind of calf level. But again, the really important thing is sprinkle the food, teach the puppy that it's no big deal, and there's neutrality, right? So this is something great. It helps boisterous puppies. It helps fearful puppies because they learn that there's no social pressure and they just getting great food whenever people come through the door. So that's a great option just for a quick, right? Just very quick, let's get it done and get some help. Secondarily, another thing that I've used oftentimes is to teach my dog or puppy to go to a place bed. And then I pair that with the knock or the doorbell. And what happens is the knock or the doorbell becomes their signal to go to the bed. So what'll happen is we teach a really good go to place and they get rewarded for going to place. You can either reward yourself or you can toss food over to the bed, or there's even remote feeders out that you can put. There's one called a treat and train that you can put right at the edge of the bed, and when they run to the bed, you can click the reward and it comes out and they get fed for being on the bed while you're answering the door. So takes a little more work. You have to teach a good place bed, you have to get them really invested in staying there, potentially even teach a good boundary of don't get off, right? And it can be a valuable way to handle it as well. And then what you do though is you'll pair the sound of the doorbell. The knock becomes the signal to run to the bed, right? So you could either say go to place like at any other point in the day, but if that doorbell or that knock happens, your dog has also learned that is the signal to go to their bed. So that's a really, it can be very helpful, very cut and dry method for handling it. The other way that I handle it for dogs, especially that are kind of adrenaline junkies, sending them to a bed and suppressing them to the bed can be problematic too, because what will happen is oftentimes with dogs that struggle with their adrenaline, what happens is if we send them to a bed and make them stay on that bed, we're taking, and it's like having a Coke bottle that we've shaken up and it looks great. But then at some point, when that cap comes off the bottle, it's like a explosion, right? So oftentimes for dogs that tend to be more excited or really struggle with their adrenaline, I don't teach them you have to go to place. What I'll do is I'll shape the behavior of going to place. But then the other thing that I'll do is I'll put a boundary around the door that said, don't go in this area, but you're free to stay on the other side of the boundary and get fed. And I'll actually do that while the dog becomes calmer and can process. And then I can either choose to send them to the bed, or I shape them to the bed, or in some cases, they don't even need it. Just the being calm has been enough that they're not even going to think about jumping on someone. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to do a share screen and show you a couple of videos of this. You can use natural boundaries. So if you have like a foyer area and it's tiled or it has wood, and then the area next to it is carpeted, you can do something as simple as that. Stay on the carpeting, baby puppy dog, and don't enter this area. And if you stay in that area, you get fed over there, and then you can toss food again or have a feeder there for them. Or, and if you come in the area, there'll be some type of boundary consequence that would back them up back into the area where then they're free to make decisions and they can choose to sit, lay, go to a bed, not go to a bed. They just can't enter this area. So it takes kind of that Coke bottle pressure away. I'd love to show you a couple of videos of this. You'll notice in this first video that this client of mine has painter's tape on the floor. Let's go ahead and show you how we do this. do this one first. Here we go. So I'm going to share this with you. Here we go. So you'll see that there's painter's tape here.
See how we do.
My glasses on. And the dog has learned to stay behind the painter's tape. And the human handler is tossing food into the safe area, the safety zone. The no-fly zone would not have food, but she tosses food into the where you can be area. And generally what she'll do, I'm going to pause this for a second. What she'll do is when she's rewarding the dog, she'll reward further back. She doesn't throw it straight at the line. Now you'll notice this last toss, she actually threw into the no-fly area. That's because she's proofing the behavior here. If your dog or puppy doesn't respect the no-fly area over just a piece of food, they'll never respect it over a guest coming through the door. So she tossed that piece of food. And then because Pandora did so well, she actually then rewarded her by tossing food far back into the no-fly zone, right? I mean, into the safety zone where she can eat. There, she thought about going in the no-fly zone. There was a mild spray bottle boundary correction that went 45-degree angle to the ground. And then she again gets rewarded for staying back. It's a really great way to teach, and you can feed meals this way, right? So you can really teach the behavior without a guest first. She's getting the food that's definitely in the you can have it area, right? In the safety area, and then in the no-fly area, not. And then what happens too is if we go with our dog, if we don't claim the space, but if we invite our dog with our hip, we say, come on with me, they know that they can then go into this area. We didn't claim it and face them. So if you have only one door where you're going to want to go in and out with your dog, that's already taken care of as well. So she brought the dog, she brought her dog with her and said, hey, it's okay. And now on this one, she's again going to claim the space very frontally and say, okay, no, now you need to stay back. And again, Pandora wrote that beautifully. So that would be step one. I'm going to do a stop share real quick. And then I'm going to show you what happens then by the time they have guests. So here was a little later in the situation. Is we have guests. Now on this one, it's an intermediate move to the doorbell ringing. So we first teach the behavior that we want without the doorbell ringing. Here in that a lot of times the doorbell will excite the dog. So we want Pandora to be able to process that there will be humans on the other side of this glass door and to stay in the area here. And then we would add the doorbell and then we would have them come in, etc. So this would be like a next step. And Pandora would have rushed the door even without a doorbell. So again, do you see how she stepped back the moment mom took the space? When mom got finished, she stayed back. So she's like, okay, I know I'm supposed to stay back.
Yeah.
Even just this before she would have raced the door and barked on the door, you can see like all the nose and slobber spots right over there. So this was a great way to teach her to make the choice to stay back. So that's the next step. I have another video we're going to show you a little bit more. So just so that you can see this, I'm trying to help everybody with the different pictures of how this can work. Another client here with this is a young Rottweiler. I think he's about a year old here.
Good boy.
And she's got her kids running around and all kinds of stuff.
I don't know how to end this. I didn't do the.
Oh, wait. Oh, let me back it up. Sorry. Start it over. Okay. So the knock, she again turns, takes the space, is showing her dog that he's not going to be following her. And then she rewarded him for staying back.
Come on.
And her boundary is actually the beginning of the hallway, which is really good.
Yes.
She's rewarding far back from the hallway.
Good boy.
And again, this isn't finished work. This was just started. Again, she took the space. Really nice, excellent work there.
Yes, good boy.
She rewarded him for staying back. And then now
just have
he
to
can
stay
think.
fast.
Now he's processed, he's had a little food, he's been a little satiated, and he can think. So
Yeah.
now she has control. He's not racing the door, or racing
the-
up on her
Okay, you can
guest.
cut it.
And then she was able to ask him for a down, which I think was really cool. So that's another version. And I'm going to show you one last version where this client, this dog was actually seriously reactive to people. There was a time where she was not going to have anyone come through the front door. And she pairs the whole threshold. See how she's got the tape down? The whole threshold thing also with, she does end up sending her dog to place. And again, she's showing him all the places where he can be, right? Rewarding him for staying in all the places where he can be. But he stays out of the no-fly zone. I probably would have tossed his food a little further back. But he's a smart boy. He did really well with that. Knock at the door. She sent him to place.
Hello, how are you? Good. Good. Oh, thank you for the packages.
Okay, wait till you get a load of this guest. This is pretty funny.
You have a great holiday. You have a awesome holiday too. Did you want to come in? You want to warm up for a second? Keep coming a little bit more.
I don't think the dog's ever seen that.
No, thank you. I love it. You ready for Easter? Yeah. For Christmas? Yeah.
That was one of the neighbor's kids, I think.
Thanks again.
And her dog is really nice here, not jumping, right? So, hopefully that helps you understand what I'm talking about, with regards to, creating, using the bed or creating a no-fly zone and reporting your dog for staying out of it, etc. Now let's talk a little bit more about the whole jumping on you, right? So, the question was about how to stop their dog or their puppy from jumping on them and or their guests. Honestly, spatial pressure and teaching proper response to spatial pressure is huge. And again, starts from young puppy, or if you rescued a dog, it starts from the moment you bring them in the home. If we accidentally are always walking around them, then we teach them that they don't need to defer to our space. And what happens is they think nothing of coming up into our space. So like in my basic course, my foundational course, we teach proper response to leash communication and to spatial communication. And a big part of why we do that is it actually takes care of a lot of the issues in the home that people tend to have, like their puppy or their dog jumping on them. So having an understanding and a healthy use of spatial pressure is really good. The other thing that, again, that's helpful is, I already mentioned it with regards to your guests, but it's also important for you when you at first acknowledge your puppies or your dogs. Don't stand up so tall and be high reaching for them. Sit in a chair and acknowledge them at their level, right? Bend to acknowledge them. Otherwise, they are going to reach up to get your attention. I think the other thing to remember too with puppies and young dogs is that whatever we acknowledge or reward is going to be something they think they're supposed to do. So little self-examination here. How many of y'all have had that cute 8-week-old, 9-week-old puppy that you're sitting in a chair and they come up and they put their paws up on your knees and you go, oh, you're so cute, and you reach down and you pet them? Right? Well, if you've done that, you've taught them that putting their paws up on you is a way to get your attention. And then what happens is, over repetitions and repetitions and repetitions, they become very strong in that behavior. And then if you're racing around and not paying attention to them and they're trying to get your attention, or as you're coming through the door, they're super excited and you're not paying that attention quickly enough, they're like, oh, well, my paws always work. So boom, they jump up to say hi. And then you get frustrated potentially, right? So just be aware that they don't understand the difference between just them putting their paws up and them jumping their paws up. And they don't understand the difference between you being okay with it when you have sweats on and not okay with it when you've got your dress clothes or your work clothes on. So Does that mean I never ask my puppies to give me hugs or my dogs? Of course not. Like what I do is I teach them status quo is don't come up in my space. But I do teach give mommy hugs. And when I say that, my dogs hop up to give me hugs. So you can have the best of both worlds, but you have to be very consistent that the status quo, unless you ask for hugs, is that they don't jump up in your space. So I hope that this is helpful, and I hope that you'll have some fun playing with some of these things. And again, please feel free to reach out for help if you need it. And please feel free to write some comments, some questions for future lives in the comments section below. Take care. Bye-bye.